what would your advice be? An artist, a musician, a band that would want to follow in your footsteps? I am joined by, well, some of you may know him as the son of Phil Collins, but to most of us, he is the drummer for Better Strangers, introducing Mr. Nic Collins. Yes.
How are you? Thanks for having me, man. Thanks so much.
I'm cool. No, you're welcome. See you later. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for coming on, man. It is a real pleasure to have you here. I have seen so much footage of you as a drummer, because you're a musician in your own right, and also, you did the last ever Genesis shows with your dad. I've got to ask, how was that experience musically, emotionally? Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for the kind words. That's very nice of you to say that.
Come on,
making me blush. But no, it was great, man. It was honestly, it was really special. I mean, it's been I started playing with my dad, like his solo band back in 2017. Well, we had done some charity gigs, but his real tour was 2017, and
sure,
and that kind of progressed into eventually doing the Genesis thing. So it was really special. I mean, like, for multiple reasons. I think for the first thing is that, as a drummer, playing that material night in, night out was just, it was great. It's so much fun playing with those guys in that band. They're just, fabulous songwriters. And that was what was cool, was being able to, at least like for me as a individual, I come more from like wanting to be a songwriter than anything else. So seeing their take on it and all those parts that they wrote and just like how they approached it without necessarily it being all like, theory and all that kind of stuff. Like just being able to write those songs and those parts was really great. But also being able to share that with my dad, I mean, that ended up being his last shows ever. I mean, not only him, but also, Genesis in general. So being able to, be part of that, let alone, as an individual, but just like being able to share that with them was just really cool and special. And it was great. I mean, the shows were awesome. It was kind of a celebration by the time we were doing it, because it kept getting postponed because of COVID.
Of course.
It got postponed like twice.
Do you think there might be a Spinal Tap moment within Genesis, in that they might go, do you know what? Let's have one last tour. Do you think that could happen?
I mean, who knows? I mean, like that kind of what it felt like, this one. I mean, Daryl, the touring guitarist who's been with them for like 45 years or something, he said like he thought 2007 was the last time they would do it when they did their reunion tour then. But I guess they're older now, so who knows? I mean, at least for now, and to me, my dad's time on stage is kind of done, but you never know. You know what I mean? There's always, you can never say never. And that's kind of the reason he still ended up going on the road, even when he did his solo thing. He said he was done and he missed it. So.
Yeah, of course. I've got to ask you on a personal level. And I feel I can ask you these sorts of questions because, I felt we clicked when we were kind of chatting on email. Does being the son of arguably the most famous drummer in the world, does it have its cons as well as its pros? Are there anything, and have there ever been any times when you thought, oh, for fuck's sake, I just wish I was kind of doing my own thing, and I wish that, it wasn't always, Phil Collins is my dad. I don't know, I full named him. You don't go up to him and go, hey, Phil Collins, you obviously said dad, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely something that, like, when I was a kid, it was never a big deal when I was a kid, because he was just my dad. I saw him like do his tour in like 2004, and that was kind of it for the most part. I mean, I saw like one of the Genesis shows, two of the Genesis shows or something like that when they did the reunion. But to me, he was just my dad. I think it was more when I really started getting serious about music that you could just kind of pick up that like people had this expectation, but it was more so when I was like 16, 17.
Okay.
Where you just, people have this expectation. They want you to make a specific genre of music. They want you to do this. But now I've come to the point where I don't really pay attention to it. Like it's I look at it more in a positive way where, I'm so proud of like what he's done, and that's great. And I'm, so honored to be part of, I guess, his legacy. Right. But, I'm not gonna like it. What people think or what people expect doesn't really affect me anymore. I don't really care.
And you listen, man. This is coming from a drummer as well. I think you're a fabulous player. I think you've got an amazing approach for such a young guy. You've got an amazing approach to the drums, and I really enjoy your style. And what I kind of noticed is it is very, very different to your dad's. And I think that when you listen to Better Strangers and when you listen to Genesis, you can tell that you guys are musicians in your own right. And I definitely get what you're saying about being a musician in your own right and kind of following your own path.
Thank you, man.
No, stop it. You hang up. No, you hang up. Come on. I've got to ask, and this is going to be my kind of final question regarding that kind of situation for you, because I want to talk about your band, but I've referenced Spinal Tap once and I'm going to need to reference it again. What was the most Spinal Tap moment of touring with Genesis?
Oh God, I gotta think about that. I mean, the obvious one is when we played Cleveland, and I was like, "Hello, Cleveland." You know what I mean? Like that. I like that was. I had to do that. No, I mean, I think like there's every now and then you'd have a little issue with the production where like I don't know, the light wouldn't come down, or
Stonehenge is too small.
Exactly, or like when they're in the eggs and they're trying to break out, like that thing. There's quite a few. I mean, all the traveling and going through security, that's kind of very Spinal Tappy, because it's just like that's really the hard work of being on the road with, especially with a band like that. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, the scale of touring is very, luxurious and better to like what, I do with my own band, for example. Sure. So I'm not going to go and, complain about it and take it for granted, but the travel and getting to the gig is the work, but playing the show itself is not, you know what I mean? So all that of, just the kind of hurdles that you go, when you're on the road, that's just all. I mean, Spinal Tap is one of the most accurate movies ever, really.
Right, right. And the second one is coming out in 2024, so that's just going to be sensational. Yeah. That's going to be mad. Listen, you're 21 years old, and you've accomplished so much in your life. You have had the ability to see the music industry through very different eyes, with regards to your dad and his success, but also with regards to your own band, Better Strangers, and their success. And I wanted to ask you, because I got the impression just from kind of chatting to you online that you're a very kind of wise head on young shoulders. I don't know if anyone's kind of ever said that to you before, but I wanted to find out from you if you thought that though you probably don't remember a world without it, has the internet been something that has been positive for bands, whether they're on majors or whether they're emerging? Or do you think it's been a tool that's been implemented negatively?
I mean, it's totally, for me, it's totally down the middle. It's the same way that I feel about like streaming services and stuff. Like now it's great. I mean, bands wouldn't be able to survive without the internet. The fact that you can reach so many people, that you can just be so like connected to fans and stuff, like that wasn't a thing back in the day. So, I mean, especially like when my dad was growing up, stories he's told me of like, early Genesis days, they're totally different. But then again, because it's so accessible, everybody wants to be in a band and everybody wants to be a musician. So there's like so many people who want to do the same thing.
Sure.
And it's come to the point now where like, it's a great tool, but like, it's so much luck now, I guess, like involved in like making it, I guess. And like, especially when, with like TikTok and stuff, like you've got to play this game and it's very rarely about the music anymore. It's always, it's about how you've marketed it. And that's kind of unfortunate. But then again, like the fact that you can release a track independently on Spotify and potentially reach millions of people, that's beautiful. And that wasn't a thing back then. I feel like back, even up until it seems like the 90s, the only way you could release a record is if you were signed to a label. You were like, you were big enough and you had to go through all those things to be able to even put out a song. Whereas now it's just easy. But then again, that's probably why we get a lot of crap music too, because everybody can just do it.
I think it was already an oversaturated market, the music industry, but the internet has just made things, 100 times busier. But as you say, the pros and the cons are for me anyway, they're certainly very kind of prominent. Bands aren't making as much money, but it is easier to get music out there. Just looking behind you, 30 years ago, people would have to go into a studio and actually use the equipment that is just in your house. I'm assuming that's your house and you've not just broken into someone's house with a cool room.
I thought the scenery was cool, so I just
your band Better Strangers have a brand new single out. It's called But I Don't Know Your Name. For me, I shared it on Instagram because I thought it was kind of gritty, it was dirty, it was grungy, it was raw. Has this style of music always turned you on, or have you kind of gone through the ranks of liking, I don't know, the more progressive stuff that you've been brought up with, or even, completely different genres of music?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's been this really cool thing that I've shared with two of my bandmates, Yang, who's the bass player in Better Strangers, and then Joey, who's the guitar player. Like we've been in bands together for like 7-8 years,
Wow.
in different things, and so we've really grown up as musicians and just like as people together. And so you go through different phases of bands you listen to. So I mean, like, yeah, like rock music always kind of, I always had a thing for it, but there's different bands that you listen to. And I think a song like But I Don't Know Your Name was, with Ricky, our singer, when he joined about 2 years ago or something, that the genre and the sound that we had kind of slowly got a bit more defined. But even now, like the stuff we're writing, I mean, But I Don't Know Your Name was written almost a year and a half ago or something. And
Sure.
it's just, it took us a while to just put it out. And we've actually got another song, which is all done. Music video's done. Track is done. So we're hoping to release that in the next month or two.
Nice.
So, but it's like, even from then till now, there's still a progression of like different things that you're listening to. I mean, I definitely think that being on the road with Genesis changed my perspective on drum parts and that specifically. And just getting, listening to more bands in that kind of progressive world where that's now become a bigger part of our sound, as opposed to a song like But I Don't Know Your Name. Like the newer stuff is a bit more on that wave. But, it's just like, that's like, to me, like that's the equivalent of practice for me. Like I don't love sitting down and getting a practice pad and doing stuff. It's me, it's just more listening to different bands and different music. Because the song like But I Don't Know Your Name has got a lot of like Nine Inch Nails in there. It's got a lot of, there's a very hip hop influence and cadence with the vocals, for example. Like that's just all kind of like mixed of like stuff that you just listen to and that you just become familiar with.
I was going to ask you, when you're talking about kind of the influence behind the song that the band have just released, for you, Nic, who is your kind of biggest influences? And I, of course, am more than aware that your hero and your friend was, of course, Taylor Hawkins. So I suppose I was kind of expecting that answer. And I just want to pass on my condolences, man. That was an event that just shocked the world. So my condolences to you.
Yeah, no, that was rough. That was actually the day of the last Genesis show ever. Which was like, it was just weird. Felt like when I woke up and it was like my girlfriend told me and I was like, what? Like I was just like, it wasn't ready to process that. And yeah, I mean, Taylor was like, the thing with him is he like was one of my childhood heroes, like right from the get-go. And, like I've grown up listening to Foo Fighters, like, and still to this day are like one of my favorite bands. And he had such a huge impact to like from the playing to even just the way he sets up his drums. Like I take so much inspiration from the way he even set them up, and then I got to, we met in like 2018 and then just kind of kept this like, relationship where he'd call me and I'd call him and we kept in touch. And it was special to me because he didn't need to give a shit.
Yes.
But he did.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the thing that was special to me, that I like, other than the fact that he was my hero, he always just like, it wasn't like, it didn't feel like that. It just felt like I was talking to any other guy, you know what I mean? And he was interested in what I was doing. So it was just like, I was so, I'm honored to have been able to share that friendship with him. But obviously, I mean, it was tough on everybody that knew him or that was connected to him. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I even can fathom the pain that, his bandmates feel or that Dave feels, but he's always been such a huge part of my playing. And it's in every like song that we write, there's always a bit of Taylor in there. I mean, like my favorite drummers, it's a list that just keeps growing. You know what I mean? Like whether it's John Bonham or
Oh
Danny
man.
Carey, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like those
yeah.
guys. But there's always going to be like, Taylor in there from anything that I do,
As a friend of Taylor Hawkins, and I know that we're kind of going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I wanted to ask you kind of, you were his friend. Is it too early? And I say this, I suppose, with the most amount of respect. Is it too early for us to speculate what the Foo Fighters may do in the future, and or who would replace Taylor? Because I was kind of often thinking, would it be Dave? But then I kind of thought, well, actually, Dave wants to be in the front, and that's Foo Fighters is Dave is at the front. I wondered if you'd had any thoughts on who may kind of.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, it's like I can't, I don't know what their dynamic was, like as a band, because I feel like in any band, there's always a few members where it's like, if so and so wasn't there, like the band wouldn't be able to do it. You see like a lot of band, like for example, when John Bonham passed away.
Yes, I was just about to say.
You know what I mean? So who knows? I mean, the thing is to me at least, like the Foo Fighters were like, that connection between Dave and Taylor was always such a special thing. You go to the show and you can just feel that, like, and it was like Taylor was such a big part of that band and just like the sound and the live experience. Like I always said, like, and I noticed it more when he passed, and I started looking back through videos of him. It's just like, he was so dramatic as a drummer, and it was just everything you could want to be. Like it was so much showmanship. And like, you underestimate how important that is when you're like watching it, but then you go back and you're like, man, like that guy is totally, there's nothing worse than looking at a drummer who looks bored. And he was always like, it just looked like he was
so animated.
110% every, measure. But,
I think he always seemed, for me, and I know this is an interview about you, but I just, when it's drummers, man, it's open game for anyone. For me, Taylor always seemed like one of those drummers that was so loose in their playing, but also so precise in every note that was hit and every drum that was hit. And I think it's a style that we won't hear again, perhaps for a really long time. What would your advice be, Nic, to an artist, a musician, a band that would want to follow in your footsteps and would want to become, in a band that really was climbing the ladder to success?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is if you're really like you're gonna know if like you really believe in something. Like if don't stick around in something if you don't really believe it's gonna work out. But if you really do, then you can't give up on it, and you got to keep going and pushing, because it's so hard to make it. But if you've got a product that like you're confident enough and you're proud, and you want the music to do well, and you think it can do well, it'll work out. You just need to find the right pieces to kind of accommodate that. And I think it's like spending time with bandmates and writing stuff, like that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing that's ever happened to our band. And we're not, nowhere near being a big band, but like we spent 2 years or so without a singer.
Yes.
And so the three of us as musicians just like wrote stuff like for 2 years, and a lot of that sucked. Like a lot of it was terrible because like we didn't have a singer, so we were like doing like stupid time signatures, like 50 guitar layers, like stuff that because would was just not great.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with instrumental rock bands. Liquid Tension do it very well.
Yeah, but that period of time like allowed us to kind of know what we want. And now like it's you just grow this confidence that you have in your other bandmates, and this like that you can rely on them all the time. So I think really it's finding it's hard to find your guys. And I remember my dad telling me this. He said, Nic, you're very lucky that you found your people at such a young age, which I do think I have, because like the Yang and Joey as musicians, and obviously Ricky as a singer, but like it's like those guys, like I can totally rely on them to do whatever on their instrument. Like I don't feel like I'm like, man, we'd be better if you were just a bit better at your instrument. You know what I mean? There's never any of that. Sure. Like they're so solid that like you grow this familiarity and reliability on them, where I think it's finding that is such an important part, and just really ironing it out and working at it, because that's the thing is it's a lot of work. and especially now where like so many things go viral and so many, so many artists just blow up out of nowhere. It's so easy to like lose confidence in it and just be like, God, like clearly it's never going to happen. But you just kind of have to just keep going. And if you're like, especially now, it's like, if you're confident enough in the music and in the material, then, why wouldn't you keep going? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, definitely. In I suppose in that, what you're saying, what is next for you? Are you guys gonna be kind of hitting Europe? I know you were recently in the UK, but do you have plans to kind of come back and tour with the band? What's happening?
Yeah, so we got the new single coming out soon. Just figuring out like the best way to release it. But other than that, I mean, we're hoping to do a run of shows in August, September, whether that's in the US or in the UK or Europe, who knows? But there's definitely plans on going back to Europe. Hopefully by the end of the year. Cool. There's a few periods of time that are a bit busy. I'm doing some projects with some drum stuff, but other than that, like, that's the goal, is just to keep going on the road and keep doing it and putting out tracks. And hopefully after this song that comes out soon, it's not that long until the next two are coming out. We were having a talk about it today, actually. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting, and we're trying to put out material. And like I said, with like some of the songs that we've been writing, like it's trying to get through all the songs that we've written that we believe in until we can get to the new stuff that we're writing. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to like ride the whole wave, but yes, we're getting there. And, it's exciting that we're going to be able to start putting out stuff. Like the next song is a bit more of a chill kind of,
okay. Yeah, because
spacey song.
The last single was like an onslaught, like it was almost like battle music. It was a strong sound. It's like a sort of like a musical bulldozer. So I guess that's fantastic. But to have that contrast in your next release will be a really interesting listen, I think.
Yeah, what's next is a bit more like a change of pace, but still something that we think has, I mean, it ends up getting a bit loud, but it's definitely got a bit more subtlety and stuff to it. And then the next songs are going to start getting into that more kind of progressive sound of the band, which is exciting for us, because you get to play it live, and we've
sure.
That's probably the other thing that I would tell bands that are trying to make it, is you got to play live. Like it's such a clear like gap between bands who just like are, they'll put out a single, do really well, and they're big on TikTok, but then as band that's like cut their teeth out on the road. Because like for us, for example, we had put the Better Strangers had put out an EP like a year and a half ago. We took it down because it was just like there was a change in sound. It was like label stuff, whatever. But like that whole EP was written during COVID, so it was very studio stuff. Like I don't know, it's just like I was talking about all these layers and just a genre of music that as soon as we started playing the songs live, we were like, oh, I don't know, this isn't as good as we thought it was. So like all the songs that we're playing now like have to be trialed live. Like that, like that's become a criteria for us. So I think that's so important for bands to just get out there and just get real reactions to their songs, like, because that's what's important, right? I mean, if you get it through a screen, that's fine with nice headphones, but when you're at a show and you get to see like the rawest reaction to what what people think of it, that's great.
When you say to see a band live, and I want to pick your brains on this, do you mean, I know what you mean, but I'm asking this to be a bit of a dick. Do you mean to just go on stage and perform it live, like without a backing track and without playing to click, and be really raw? Or what is your definition? Because for me, if I go and see a band live and they've got like 50 different backing tracks, they've got vocal harmonies that aren't actually being sung, they're being mimed, I'm kind of a bit like I may as well just listen to the CD.
Yeah, well, I think like for me at least, and I know for the guys in the band, like we don't go play live because like we have to. Like ultimately, the only reason we do it is because we want to play the songs. Like like we just have fun playing with each other. So like for us, like the most like for example, But I Don't Know Your Name has a drum loop. Like that'll be the extent of the backing tracks that we use, is just a loop that has to be there because that's what the song sounds like. But for us, it's like if we can't for example, like vocals and stuff, like if we can't do the harmonies to help out Ricky, then can't do the song, or we got to find another way to do it. So I think like it really depends from band to band. I mean, like you said, like I think people notice when there's a lot of stuff, and I think bands underestimate how much people notice, because it's like all it takes is just looking at the stage and be like, how the hell have you got a keyboard triggering when you've only got 4 guys and nobody's like, you know, it's not difficult.
People aren't stupid.
Yeah. And so I think like, you know, but everybody has their, you know, there's great ways to incorporate electronics in your stuff.
100%.
At least for us, like we've never wanted to play to a click other than like, you know, that song specifically having a drum loop, like, because it's just, it doesn't become fun. And all of a sudden you got to concentrate about like, oh my God, am I dragging? And especially if you're playing like clubs, you're never guaranteed perfect, you know, in your mixes. So like it can just fall apart really fast.
I guess I don't have a problem with, you know, I don't have an issue with drummers playing to click. You know, I think my issue was more of like, I don't think bands that play to multiple backing tracks are actually giving the fans what they want. I don't think there's anything wrong with maybe 2 or 3, but when it's like just constant backing tracks, you may as well be watching bands mime. But that is my opinion, and I know that so many people are going to disagree with that, but that's just, and I also know that I referenced CD earlier rather than stream, so I'm definitely showing my age. Thank you, Nic, so much for coming on. It has been really cool to talk to you. It's been a
fun chat.
Stop it, come on. But when you come to the UK, I think we should drink 18 pints of beer before you go on. Let's make it fun.
I hope there definitely can't be a click track then if we're doing that.
Yeah. But genuinely, best of luck with everything, and it will be super cool to hang out.